Even recording in progress. Okay, let me say. 10 minutes start ചെയ്തോണേ. Okay, miss. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ready on.
10 o'clock start ചെയ്യാട്ടോ.
Okay.
റെക്കോർഡിംഗ് ഓൺ ആണ്.
Okay.
മിസ് എന്തെങ്കിലും കാരണവശാൽ സൗണ്ടിന് ബ്രേക്ക് ഉണ്ടെന്ന് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ മിസ്സിന്റെ വീഡിയോ ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്താൽ മതി കേട്ടോ. ചിലപ്പോൾ റേഞ്ച് എന്തെങ്കിലും ബ്രേക്ക് ആവുന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ ഓഡിയോ ക്ലാരിറ്റി ഇല്ല പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ മിസ് വീഡിയോന്റെ ആ ചിഹ്നം അത് ഇതാക്കിയാൽ മതി. സിമ്പിളായി അൺമ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്താൽ മതി. ഇപ്പോൾ ഓൺ ആക്കി വെച്ചോളൂ. ഇനി ഇൻ കേസ് അങ്ങനെ പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ടാവുകയാണെങ്കിൽ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്നു.
ഞാൻ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് ക്ലിയർ ആണല്ലോ? സൗണ്ട് കേൾക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ അല്ലേ?
ഓക്കെ.
ഓക്കെ.
Good morning, students. Today we are going to have the class on biomaterials and prosthetic devices. Ms. Monisha CM, a lecturer in biomedical engineering at Model Polytechnic College, Kalyashiri, is handling the session. She will be handling the second half of the first module. Monisha holds both bachelor's and diploma degree in biomedical engineering. She has experience as lecturer and technician in various polytechnic colleges. She is indeed an apt person for handling this session. I welcome Monisha to this session. Welcome us. The session is yours. You can start now.
Good morning, students. Thank you, ma'am, for the introduction. Dear students, today we are going to see about the subject biomaterials and prosthetic devices. The first part of the unit you might be already studied. Today we are going to learn the second portion of the first unit. Let's see what all we need to study in the first unit.
Mr. Bike ഒന്നും കൂടി ക്ലോസ് ആയിട്ട് പിടിക്കണേ.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, അങ്ങനെ.
Okay. So, okay. So, your first module is biomaterial and its application. And today we are going to see the second part of the first chapter, which deals with metal and ceramics. So, one second. Okay, let's see the syllabus. In the second part of the first unit, as numbered here, the 1 is pointing the unit 1 and the 2 is for the part 2. So the second part of unit 1 is actually aiming to distinguish metals and ceramics. So you should learn what is metal and ceramics in the second part of this unit. For that, again, 5 topics is given for a deep understanding. The first one is the composition and properties of stainless steel alloys. And the same composition and properties for cobalt-based alloys is the second topic. Then the fracture fixation devices will be discussed. After that, we will move to the ceramic implants, the structure and properties of different types of ceramic implants. And the last and the final topic of the unit 1 is explanation about the dental implants. So these 5 topics is what we are going to learn today. So first, you should have a clear idea about what's biomaterial and what are the types. So in the first portion of the same chapter, you might be studied what is biomaterial and what is biocompatibility. Just look at this figure to understand the impact of biomaterials in human body. It's just the upper part of the body itself is showing this much numbers of biomaterials and the implants, which is used widely for various application, including to sometimes to support a particular organ or a function, or sometimes to replace the organ itself. So you can see the example from the artificial ear to the finger joints, and the remaining is also included the hip joint, knee joint, and foot joint processes, and a lot of more applications. So this figure is just shown to understand you what is the impact of biomaterials in our body, what's the importance and the roles. So when you are studying about biomaterials, the important fact is that you should know why a biomaterial selection of a biomaterial is that much important. Because when we are adding an additional or a foreign element to our body, the body will try to make it out of the body as a reaction from our body, because our body will not accept any foreign material if it is toxic or producing any kind of negative effect to our body. So the selection of biomaterials for the implant construction is very important. So we are going to study what are the biomaterials that we used for the construction of various implants and why they are preferred. What is the peculiarity of that particular metal or ceramic or any other substances that we are using as a biomaterial is selected for that purpose. That's what we are going to study. That term you already familiarized with. What was that term? The ability of a biomaterial to produce not toxic effect to the human body, which is called biocompatibility. So the biocompatible material that we are going to discuss right now. I'll give you first an introduction about what is metal and ceramics. First, try to understand what is the peculiarity of a metal, why we are using metal as a biomaterial for implant construction. The main three factors that we consider when talking about the metal is its high modulus, yield point, and ductility. What do you mean by this modulus factor? Modulus is actually how well a substance can resist the deformation. That's what we mean by the modulus. It means that when a material having high modulus, it can resist or withstand a high level of stress and strain without deformation. It will stand in its own shape and structure even if a large amount of stress is applied. It is an ability of the material to possess high modulus means it is excellent option for selecting as a biomaterial. So metals have high modulus. It's somewhat same to speak about the yield point. Yield point means up to the yield point, a material can withstand a stress without deforming to plastic. After the yield point, a material becomes deformed to the plastic material. So when a material is having good yield point, that means it can withstand stress and strain over a large period of time or a large duration. So having a good yield point means, if metal having a good yield point means, it can act as a good biomaterial in human body. And third point is ductility. Ductility is the ability of a material to do not break even if we shape into very thin structure. Gold is an example, right? If we change the shape into very thin and go on, it will not going to break. It will not be brittle. So metals having these three characteristics that include high modulus, good yield point, and ductility, which makes metal one of the best material or biomaterial for the implant construction. So metals are widely used for the construction of various implants, which includes two main purposes, that is prosthesis and fixation devices. Prosthesis means it's an artificial part which is designed to replace a missing part, or sometimes we replaces the part itself for working better or support it for work better. Such devices are called prosthesis device, in an artificial part that we made ourselves and implant into the body. Second one is the fixation devices used in the treatment of fracture, reconstruction, surgeries, and so on. You will deeply learn what is prosthesis and fixation devices in this paper. That's biomaterials and prosthetic devices. So try to understand that metals are widely used because of these three qualities that metal have, and the primary purpose included prosthesis devices and as a fixation device. Okay. This is how metal look like. This is an example that I have shown. It is actually used for hip prosthesis as well as knee prosthesis. Okay. Now let's see what are the elements that found in metallic implants. These are the example, or these are the basic elements that is used to make a metallic implants, which is included like alumina, carbon, cobalt, chromium, iridium, iron, manganese, molybdenum, nickel, and so on. So these are the alloys that used for a metal implant construction. Main metal implants that we used is stainless steel, cobalt-based alloys, titanium, nitinol, tantalum, and platinum. Your syllabus is mainly focusing on stainless steel and cobalt-based alloys in the metal portion. So we will discuss it later. And just try to understand what the difference between a metal and a ceramics from here. That is, ceramics is, as we said, metals having three important characteristics why they are accepted as one of the main element for biomaterial. The same different properties are there for ceramics also. That's why ceramic is also considered as one of the main biomaterials used for implant construction. Ceramics are of three types mainly, that's completely resorbable, surface reactive, and nearly inert, that we'll learn later. This is how the ceramic part looked like along with the stainless steel stem. Ceramic implants, the main classification, as we said, in the case of metals, stainless steel, cobalt-based alloys. In the case of ceramic implants, the carbons, alumina, yttrium stabilized zirconia, glass ceramics, and TCP and HAP as the main type that we use as a ceramic implants. Now, from here onwards is actually what your syllabus is starting. This much portion I explained to make you understand what is the difference between a metal and ceramic, what all come under each topics. Okay, so listen carefully. What is a metal? And the first type of metal we are going to discuss right now, that is stainless steel. The composition and properties of stainless steel. Composition. When we are talking about the stainless steel, we should try to understand what are the development steps in the stainless steel that they started to develop, or we can say the history of the stainless steel that came from various model to the high efficient model that we are using right now. The first introduced were 18 Cr8 nickel stainless steel, which is actually replaced the conventional steel. The problem with conventional steel was corrosion, oxidization. So when we are able to overcome the problem of corrosion, the stainless steel is a better and an excellent option as a biomaterial. Why? Because of its high modulus, good strength, and metallic properties. But the corrosion is the main problem that associated with the stainless steel. So 18 Cr8 nickel means 18% of chromium and 8% of nickel, because stainless steel alloys is what we are studying right now. So stainless steel along with the combination of various materials will be preferred. So 18 Cr8 nickel replaced the conventional steel, but it still faced the problem of corrosion. Still in 1926 and all, this type of stainless steel were preferred for surgical application, metal fracture, fixation devices, and so on. So then the type 302 introduced, which having better corrosion resistance, but the studies shown that the addition of the element molybdenum helped the stainless steel to improve its corrosion resistance. So such a model introduced, that is 188S molybdenum. It is also known as type 316 stainless steel. So this is one of the important implant material because it's having high corrosion resistance capacity. Then introduced the 316L, which is the most efficient type because along with the addition of molybdenum, here we reduced the carbon content from 0.08% to 0.03%, which make them excellent resistance for the corrosion. So these are the main four types that the stainless steel were introduced and developed along with the addition of various elements for depicting the corrosion. So 18 Cr8 nickel type was the conventional type, which is used first and replaced the conventional steel, but along with the addition of molybdenum and reduction of carbon, make the 316L the better option among the all other types of stainless steel. The prime alloying elements in the case of stainless steel is iron, chromium, nickel, molybdenum, and manganese. Each of the elements have its own importance in the creation of a better stainless steel for implant construction. Let's see what are that. This chart showing the composition of austenitic stainless steel. That's, you can see the AISI model and the names of various models as we discussed like 316 and 316L. There are other type 18 as the first type, no, that also known as 304. So the chart is showing various kinds, and AISI is actually American Iron and Steel Institute, which give the authentication or standardization for various materials. So AISI is showing various types and a percentage of composition of particular material. That's shown in the chart. That's the percentage of carbon, percentage of chromium, percentage of nickel, and percentage of manganese is shown. That means in 301, what will be the portion of carbon? What will the proportion of chromium? That's what we have to learn from this chart. And you can see that I already said 316L is the better option. Why? The carbon content is reduced. So you can see the second column, the percentage of carbon in the case of 316L is the lower number, 0.03. So the percentage of carbon is reduced. And in the case of chromium, for the stainless steel to be highly corrosion resistant, the percentage of chromium should be at least 11%. Okay. So without 11% of chromium addition in the composition, we can't meet the corrosion resistance capability. Okay. And nickel is also very important as it helps in the stability at room temperature. Okay. This some stainless steel alloys used for various application. You can see the hip nails and plates, which is made by 316L, and intramedullary pins. This you will learn as the next topic in the same unit. What is nails and plates and intramedullary pins? So just try to understand. Including the heart valves is made with the stainless steel alloy. It will not be used as a single element. The coating with other biomaterials will be included. We will learn it later. Role of each element. In the case of stainless steel, the main role of elements that we need to understand is about the chromium, which helps in corrosion resistance with at least 11% should be added. And in the case of molybdenum, addition of molybdenum enhances the resistance to pitting corrosion. And the carbon content should be lowered to resist the corrosion. And the nickel and chromium will influence the phase stability as shown in figure. The effect of Ni and Cr in the case of austenitic stainless steel. Figure shows the mechanical properties of stainless steel and surgical implants. As we already said, in the case of metals, the tensile strength or young modulus and all other factors should be marked. What is the value of this percentage in the case of yield strength or elasticity, and all will be marked in the next chart. And even though the addition of molybdenum, the reduction of carbon and such factors we consider, there is still chances for failure. The main causes of failure using a stainless steel implant is, as we already discussed, the deficiency of molybdenum, which may lead to corrosion, and use of sensitized steel. The proportion changes in, as we said, the carbon content maybe increases or molybdenum content maybe decreases. Such inadvertent use of mixed metals will also causes failure. Use of mutually incompatible component is also responsible for failure. So the design and composition of a stainless steel metal makes them a successful one option for biomaterial construction. That's what we should learn about the stainless steel metal. What all we discussed? The first type of stainless steel we discussed, first type of metal we discussed here is stainless steel, and the composition and the properties. Types 18 Cr, 8 nickel, and type 302, 18 Ats molybdenum, and 316L. Among this, 316L is the better one option. As we discussed, it contains molybdenum and carbon content is reduced. And the prime alloying elements include iron, chromium, nickel, molybdenum, and manganese. The composition of various types is shown in a figure. And next, the application, where we use the stainless steel and what are the types we preferred. Role of each element is discussed. Don't forget the role of chromium, molybdenum, carbon, and nickel. Then the properties discussed. Then what are the causes of failure of stainless steel application? Stainless steel type implant. This is how a stainless steel type implant looks like. It's actually used for hip prosthesis. You will learn it in later other chapters. Next is cobalt-based alloy. The second types of metal, they are going to discuss the composition and properties of cobalt-based alloys. Cobalt-based alloy is actually in cobalt. Cobalt is actually a transition metal of atomic number 27. In periodic table, it's situated between iron and nickel. So the chemical properties are actually in between iron and nickel. So it's very strong and very good biocompatibly possessing type of biomaterial. It is available in three types, that is cast alloy, wrought alloy, and forged alloy. Let's see what is cast alloy. We can make a cast alloy by investment casting process. How it will be performed? A wax model of the implant will be made first. So what is the implant you want to make? We will make a wax model of that particular implant. That may be teeth, knee joint, or whatever the implant. We will first make a wax model of that particular implant. Then, using ceramic material, a shell is built around the wax model. Wax model first prepared, and then ceramic shell will be built around the wax model. When wax is melted away, this ceramic mold will be having the shape of the implant. Wax is easy to melt. Next, the shell will be hot fired. Hot firing is a procedure that we used to increase the strength and to get enough required shape for the metal implants. So shell hot fired to get enough strength. Then the molten metal alloy, that's what the cobalt chromium alloy that we are going to prepare. And then that molten alloy will be poured into the shell that we already made. Then what happened? After cooling, the shell will be having the shape of the implant that we first try to pick as with the wax. So okay, the molten metal alloy is then poured into the shell, and after cooling, shell will be removed and it will be having the shape of the implant what we want to design, that what we want to design. Next is the type wrought alloy. If you're using wrought alloy, already explained about the cast, and the second type is wrought alloy. Wrought alloy possesses uniform microstructure with fine grains. It gives uniform microstructure means the cast type after cooling. How long the cooling process takes place means it will be having that much of metallurgical imperfection. That means it will be having grains, the crystals, solid crystals that is varied from the normal type. So that's like a disturbance or a negative effect or a negative for the already constructed material. So wrought alloy will not be having that problem. It will be have a uniform microstructure with the fine grains. Further strengthened by cold work. Cold work and heat work is used for the metals for improving its strength. So we can be do cold work or hard work to heat work to improve the quality. The last type, the forged alloy, produced from a hot forging process. Expensive as it uses complex tooling. Cast type is the most, which is not expensive, but it having some grain issues, and the wrought and forged alloy is using some complicated tooling methods and firing methods to improve its quality. So the grains will be reduced and it can attain a uniform microstructure. So forged and wrought alloy is the more efficient and more good type of quality increased type of biomaterial. The composition of cobalt to chromium alloy used in dentistry and surgery is shown in figure. Type includes elements that is manganese, silicon, chromium, nickel, and so on. These are the main elements that we use to construct a cobalt chromium alloy. Cobalt in its pure form is not corrosion resistant, so we can't use cobalt as an alloy as a biomaterial element. The alloy formation will be along with the chromium and other materials as shown in the chart. And the percentage F75 means the amount of manganese, silicon, chromium, and other materials will be a particular percentage. Then we can form the F75. Cast type means, as I said, its production will be dependent upon the cast procedures. So F90 is where the percentage of these types of elements will be differ. According to that, F75, F90, F562 type models were introduced. Mechanical properties of cobalt-based alloys is depends on its cold worked or hot worked or annealed. This is what we had to learn in the metals as a stainless steel and cobalt-based alloys. We just discussed about the composition and properties of these two elements. In the case of cobalt, what we discussed, cast alloy, wrought alloy, and forged, and its composition as well as the properties. Next is, after the metal, your syllabus is focusing on the fracture fixation devices. Fracture fixation devices are pins, nails, screws, plates, intramedullary devices, and bond plates. Let's see what is this. Fracture fixation device means when a bond is broken, it definitely will have misalignment. It will be aligned from the normal position to some other places. It's need to be stabilized and aligned back to its original position with the support of external elements. That's what we are going to do with the fracture fixation devices. That is, it is used to stabilize and align the broken bonds. Picture showing all the kinds of fracture fixation devices. The first row is showing the screws, and then the fracture fixation metal plates, and then the rods and nails. We will learn it in the next slides. Compatibility of materials. Plates. The biocompatible metal plates are used to hold the broken pieces of bonds together. When the bond lost its alignment from the normal position, it need to be get back to the normal position. Plates will help to hold the broken pieces of bonds together. They are attached to the bond with the screws. Screws can work alone or sometimes work with the plates to make the bonds to its normal position. Plates may be left in place or removed. If you are using resorbable material for the plate construction, it will degrade naturally and the degradation products will be biocompatible. So we don't need to take back that plate after a certain interval of time. This is how a metal plate looks like. It's actually holding the two bonds which is already broken. And you can see the screws which is attached to the plates and to the bonds to make them in place how it was before the fracture occurrence. If you are using resorbable bond plates, I already said it will degrade after a period of time. So as the bond growth increases or bond retain its strength, the plate degrade naturally. Screws. The second type of fracture fixation device is screws. Screws can perform its action individually or alone or along with the support of metal plates. Now you can see that support of screws with as a single unit. Screws are used for internal fixation. There are different design based on the type of fracture and how the screws will be used. It can be used alone or hold fracture as well as with the plates, rods and nails. Nails and rods. What is nails and rods? To heal the fracture of long bonds, we use nails and rods. It holds the bond pieces together by inserting a rod in the marrow space of the bond. That's internally we are going to fix it. It might be interact with the blood supply, but it will not affect the vitality of bond. Okay. The screws at each end of the rod are used to hold them in place. You can see it from a figure. The rod, the first figure is showing how the rod or nails is used in the case of long bonds. It will be inserted into the bonds through inside hollow portion of the bond itself. And it might be used screws to attach them in the correct position. This is how it is also rods and nails is also known as the intramedullary devices. This is how it works. You can see the fracture in the center part and we inserted a rod, which is a long bond. You might be studied in the case of in paper BMS as femur and all, which is the longest bonds. And the case of such long bonds, we use the rods inserted through the marrow part or the hollow part of the bond as shown in figure. The pins and wires. In some cases where the bonds are very small in size, we can't use the screws or metal plates. In such cases, we use pins and wires for the reconstruction or the support for the fractured bond. The small bonds means the bonds in the foot and hands will be usually considered. Wires are often used to pin the bonds back together, used with the bonds which are too small to be fixed with the screws. Bonds of foot and hands are example. May be removed or sometimes be left permanently for some fractures. This is how the pins and wires will be used. In the case of elbow replacement or elbow shoulder joining problem, we use wires. And for children also, we use wires as it's concerned with the very small sized bonds. By watching this figure, you can just compare what are the types we discussed, like bond plates, intramedullary nails, K wires, that's wires and pins, and screws, how it differ in its structure and function. And fixation device we can categorize mainly into two types, like external fixation devices and internal fixation devices. In the case of external fixation devices, the whole unit supporting will be as a bar of metal placed outside the body, and screws and wires will be connected to the bonds. In the case of internal fixation, the whole unit will be placed inside of the skin or muscle itself. This is how an external fixation device looks like. The whole unit will be placed as a metal bar outside the body. It acts as a stabilizing frame to hold the broken bonds in proper position. The pins and screws are attached to the bar outside the skin and placed into the bond through small incision into the skin and muscles. So, we discussed about what is metal, what are the main important types of metals, that is stainless steel and cobalt based alloys. Then we discussed the fracture fixation devices, which is mainly made up of the metals, with the coating of other biomaterials, which what we are going to study from here onwards. The highly biocompatible material called ceramics. The structure and properties of ceramic material is what we have to study right now. The first type is carbons. Carbon is an inert type biomaterial. Inert type biomaterial means it will not causes any kind of reaction even if we keep these kinds of material in human body or in saline environment for hours of thousands of hours. It will not produce any reaction. So it is one of the important quality that a biomaterial have to be placed and do not cause toxic or inflammation to the human body. The structure of carbon is shown in figure. The single layer of plane is shown in figure A. The carbon is having two types of bonding, that is covalent bonding and van der Waals bonding. The covalent bonding is actually giving the strength for the carbon. Van der Waals gives the flexibility. So covalent bond is strong and it is attached at the four corners of each unit. And van der Waals is loose binding, and so it's give more flexibility for the carbon. All the carbon element that we used for medical application is of quasi-crystalline turbostratic structure, which is shown in the figure. You can see the single layer direction in this figure B and unassociated carbon as well. Types. The carbons are of mainly four types: the turbostratic carbon, pyrolytic carbon, LTI and ULTI. Properties. Density, elastic modulus, and the compressive strength is the main property of carbon, which makes them suitable for implant construction. The applications of carbon includes heart valves construction, blood vessel grafts, and percutaneous devices. As it does not produce any inflammatory reaction, the carbon is widely used as a biomaterial. In many cases, the carbon is used as a coating. ULTI is the main one which is used as a biomaterial coating which gives high level of biocompatibility. The second type of important ceramic is alumina, which have high corrosion and wear resistance. It is mainly used for orthopedic application, which include hip and knee joints, tibial plates, femur shaft, ankle joint prostheses, as well as leg lengthening spaces. Composition. The chart is showing the chemical composition and density of alumina. Aluminum oxide, silicon oxide, various types is shown in the chart. Properties. Mechanical properties of medical alumina. The next type is yttria stabilized zirconia. Then glass ceramics and TCP and HAP. Among this, hydroxyapatite type is widely used for the dental implant construction. Next is dental implants. Dental implants or oral implants is mainly of two types, that artificial teeth and dental appliances, and totally implanted. The artificial teeth and dental appliances is mainly for used to replace the extracted or the missing teeth. And totally implanted means it will help in the mandibular reconstruction and so on. So the usual material that we prefer as a dental implant is dental amalgam, gold, nickel, titanium alloy. The oral implants of these two types, the first figure showing the replacement of a teeth or extracted teeth or a missing teeth. And second part is showing implants placed inside the jaw bones for the reconstruction of a diseased part or lesions. The first type is again classified into two. The first one is endosseous implants. Why this endosseous implants is that much important? Because it is used to replace the extracted teeth with an artificial teeth. So it gives the root part of the unit gives immediate stabilization and long-term viable fixation. After the implant fixation, 1-4 months later only, the post part and the covered crown will be placed. It's mainly made up of stainless steel, cobalt chromium alloy, and titanium. Biocompatibility of this material will be made by the surface covered with ceramic material. What are the ceramic material we already learned? The alumina, zirconia, pyrolytic carbon, and so on. And one of the main element that we are going to use in the case of dental implants for improving the biocompatibility is porous polyethylene, which employ the use of PHDPE. PHDPE means porous high density polyethylene. Is inert than metallic elements. So it ensures the duration of that particular artificial teeth for a very long time. So it's avoid the loosening with time. Subperiosteal implants is the second type, which is the devices used for repairing damaged or diseased mandible to support from rebuilding the alveolar ridge, packing for stimulating growth of bones, and helps to recorrect if a lesion is present. This is how a dental implant will be constructed. As I already said, the root part will be placed, and after 1 or 4 months only, the post and the remaining crown part will be placed. The already placed part in the figure is the root portion, and the top teeth-like structure is the crown part, and the center portion will be called the post. So after the fixation of the root, then post and the remaining crown part will be placed. So this is the last topic of unit 1. So we just revise what we studied in the second portion of the first chapter. We first discussed about metals. Why metals is such an important biomaterial? It's because of its high modulus, good yield point, and ductility. What was that 3 points? What do you mean by high modulus? It's the ability of that particular material to resist deformation. Means it resists to change from its original position to something else by losing its structure. That will be resisted in a high degree if it's having a high modulus. And yield point is the point beyond which a material becomes plastic. So a metal having good yield point means it can withstand high level of stress without deformation. Ductility is the ability of that particular material to shape into very thin material, and it is used for prosthesis and fixation devices. Means prosthesis is artificial part which is used to perform a particular function, or it is used to help to work better for some systems. And fixation devices, we already learned what are the fixation devices and what are the types of fracture fixation devices. The first type of metals we discussed is stainless steel. Stainless steel types we discussed. The important factor in the case of stainless steel that we should consider is its behavior of producing corrosion. So the corrosion resistance should be increased to make the stainless steel a better option for implant construction. How we can improve the corrosion resistance? By adding molybdenum and reducing the carbon content, as well as the chromium content should be 11%. That's what it's shown in the first chart showing the composition of austenitic stainless steels. Various types and percentage of carbon, chromium, nickel, and manganese. And other elements include silicon. Stainless steel alloy application from construction of nails and plates. We just learned about the nails and plates and intramedullary pins. All these devices are made with the stainless steel, as it's having high degree of strength. But along with the stainless steel, we will apply the carbon coating or other ceramic coating for improving the biocompatibility. And it's stainless steel also used to construct various neurosurgery devices and heart valves, including cardiac pacemaker electrodes. Role of each element should be learned well. Then the effect of nickel and chromium in the phase stability is also discussed. Properties. Tensile strength, the yield strength and elongation of 316 and 316L type stainless steel, which is the most widely accepted type of stainless steel. Causes of failure is, if you know the importance of each element in the stainless steel alloy, you can understand how it will become a failure model if the reduction of carbon is not proper, if the molybdenum is not added in the required amount, it will cause a failure of the whole unit. Then we discussed about the cobalt-based alloys, the composition and properties of cobalt-based alloys. 3 types of cobalt-based alloys are available: cast, wrought, forged. Cast, wrought, and forged alloy. How cast type will made by investment casting is made with a wax model will be first made, and a ceramic shell will be produced with the wax model of the implant. Then wax will be melted out, and then the ceramic shell will be hot fired to get enough strength. Then the molten metal alloy of cobalt chromium will be poured into the shell. wrought and forged type. Wrought type is highly capable than that of cast type because of its uniform microstructure with fine grains, as it is done cold work more properly than cast type. And forged alloy is the better option because it is the finest metal type without any presence of any grains. Usually the cobalt is made along with the chromium with a 65% of cobalt and the remaining 35 with the chromium. And along with the application of tungsten, it become more corrosion resistant. We call it as Vitalium. Then we discussed about the fracture fixation devices. Why we are using a fracture fixation device? To stabilize and to get realignment of the bonds after a particular fracture has been occurred. So it is used to stabilize and align the broken bonds, which may be external or internal according to the place where this unit is placed. And mainly it's come with various designs and structures, like for the various application of different kinds of fractures according to the different kinds of fractures. Plates is the first one we discussed. Plate will be look like this. Along with the screws only, a metal plate can work. Hold the broken pieces together, and which may be resorbable material. Resorbable material means it degrade after a period of time. So as the bond regain its strength, the resorbable plate will degrade naturally. Screws can work alone to hold a particular bonds in position, or sometimes it can be work along with the plates. Screws is an essential part for metal plate to work better. And screws used for internal fixation as well as external fixation. Nails and rods are used in the case of long bonds, and it is called intramedullary device. The whole unit of a nail or rod will be placed through the bone marrow, the hollow or part inside the bone. This is how it look like, and the screws will be attached along with the rods and nails. Wires and pins will be used in the case of small type of bonds, like the bonds of foot and hands. This is how the various kinds of fracture fixation devices looks like. And sometimes the pins and wires kept in that place in some case of fracture which need permanent support with an external unit. This is how the external fixation looks like. Then we discussed about the ceramics, the structure and properties of various ceramic material. The carbon is the first type of ceramic material. We discussed about the structure of carbon in the case of pyrolytic carbon and vitreous carbon, and the various types ULTI and LTI, lower temperature and ultimate type. And the carbon atom will be the bonding of carbon atom will be like covalent bond and van der Waals bonding. In the case of covalent bonding, the bond between each atoms of carbon will be very strong, and it gives strength for the unit, and van der Waals gives the flexibility for the carbon unit. The properties of carbon is mainly depend upon the density of the carbon, and pyrolytic carbon are having good mechanical strength than that of any other type, and excellent biocompatibility with the tissues and blood. It is non-thrombic, so used for heart valves and other application where direct contact with the blood supply will be present. The density is the factor which makes a carbon a more efficient, or which is used for a better applications. In the case of alumina, the calcined alumina is prepared by calcination of aluminum trihydrate, which is actually used in the case of medical application. And its composition and properties is given in the chart. Yttria stabilized zirconia is highly applied in various applications because of its high strength and biocompatibility. The bending strength and all of zirconia is very much higher than that of alumina. So for many new generation type of orthopedic application uses this type of zirconia type material. And glass ceramics is actually, as the name indicated, it gives a glassy appearance, and it is very brittle. In the case of strength, it is not an efficient material, but for the dental and many other application which gives high level of biocompatibility, the glass ceramics is widely preferred. The dental implants will be used with glass ceramics for more perfection and durability. It does not need porous surface. Actually, for any other biomaterials, we need a porous surface for allowing the bone in growth. But in the case of glass ceramics, that does not need, and there will not be metallurgical imperfections. TCP and HAP. As we said, the hydroxyapatite is widely used for the dental application. And the dental implants is of artificial teeth, and dental implants is the first classification, and then totally implanted type. The endosseous is the most important part. Endosseous type will be used to replace the extracted teeth and to position the artificial one in that place. Biocompatibility is achieved along with the application of ceramics and material. When a strength is needed, we will use metals, and when the biocompatibility become a factor, we will consider the coating of that particular material with the ULTI carbon or glass ceramics or many other materials which gives high degree of biocompatibility. And last one is subperiosteal implant. So general outcome of the second part of the first unit is to distinguish between metal and ceramics. I hope you understood what is a metal and what are the main types, and what is a ceramic, what are the main types, and what is fracture fixation device, and an idea about the dental implants. Thank you. Ma'am.
Thank you, Monisha Miss. Your session was very interesting as well as informative. Here are some question. Here is a question. The question is there any difference between the biodegradable material and resorbable biomaterial? Is there a difference between the biodegradable and resorbable biomaterial?
Biodegradable type material is what we are using to construct the resorbable type of material, which after a certain period of time, it itself degrade to a body, and that products should be biocompatible. That is the main consideration when we are producing a biodegradable material or a resorbable material for plate construction.
Thank you, Miss. Yeah, thank you. No more questions are there. So I take this opportunity to thank Monisha Miss. You have made this session really very interesting. As you covered almost all the entire session with many applications, practical applications with their pictures and many diagrams, etc. The portions were really informative. Thank you, Monisha Miss, for your valuable time and support. Thank you once again, Miss.
Thank you.
Okay, next stop now.